All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in to Insights of All Trades. So this is for episode 9 with my good friend Jacob Younger. Before I get into today's guest, I'll go ahead and read an insight off from my friend Cody Dix in Egg Harbor, New Jersey. So here's what Cody has to say. Life has given me many hardships that have pushed me to be a greater person. Life has broken me and my family down to our worst, but life has also built and shaped me into a great hardworking man. Life has shown me what's right and what's wrong. Life has shown me respect and loyalty. But most importantly, life has shown me to never quit when something is tough, to always push, and to never give up on your dreams. So you can kind of see a recurring theme here throughout all of our insights, at least I think so, with the importance of building a mentality to push through and kind of embrace struggles that you have with a lot of intention towards some bigger purpose or some bigger goal. So I guess that's my takeaway from it, is that we've had that recurring theme. And to give you an idea of what we might do in the future, we might be changing up how we do those insights a little bit. But we really appreciate that insight, Cody. So thank you. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of today's guest today with Jacob Younger, he just finished hiking the Appalachian Trail. And as you can imagine, doing a 2,100 mile through hike, you come up with a lot of good stories, a lot of struggles, a lot of conflicts I can't imagine me going through at this stage in my life. So to hear someone that's pretty much the same age that has just went through that was pretty eye-opening. So I hope you enjoy. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good listen. Adios.
Welcome to Insights of All Trades with Cole and Nick. This is where we talk to people we meet along our journeys through medicine, military service, sports, education, and beyond. We hope you enjoy.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning back into the Insights of All Trades podcast. If you're watching the video, don't have Nick here with me, but I'm with my man, Jacob Younger. How are you doing, dude?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not too bad. So Jacob and I met through our mutual friend, Tyler Hershey.
The legend.
Yeah, the legend. The elusive man who keeps being referred to on this podcast, but has not come on. It has not come on yet. And
yeah.
we'll get him on here. Or maybe he's a man we're making up. Who knows? But we hiked the Loyalsock Trail, a segment of the Loyalsock Trail last summer, I believe.
Best segment.
The best segment. The segment with the haystacks at the end.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. It's a fun time. But the main story I'm sure we'll be unpacking today is that Jacob just got done hiking the whole Appalachian Trail as a through hike, which is quite a crazy feat, and it's so much to unpack that I don't know where to start except for saying go ahead and walk us through like from conception, and we'll just start dissecting it as we go along.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my life, led into hiking the trail, from just like even like where I grew up, the behind my house is a floodplain, so you can't build any houses there. So I was playing around in the creek in the woods my whole life, and my dad would take me on backpacking trips, which I actually hated a lot because like.
How young were you when you started?
The first like overnight trip I was like 7, and we just hiked like a mile, camped, and then like hiked around, and like I had a blast, like because I wasn't wearing a pack at that point, so I was like run through the water, and like I got ticks, and it was a whole adventure. I loved it. And then like the next couple trips I'd actually carry my pack, and that sucked because I was so skinny as a kid that like the hip belt wouldn't work, so like I'm just all the weights on my shoulders. My dad wouldn't like tell me how far we had to go, so it was like really hard while I was hiking. But then when we would get to camp, like it was the best. Like I just loved like climbing on rocks and playing in streams and stuff.
Dang. So is your dad like a pretty accomplished hiker then?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I wouldn't. He's not done like the AT or anything, but we've done a lot of hiking together. He leads like a men's group from church every year on like it's called Discipleship on the Trail. So he leads that. He really likes being outdoors. We hunt together, and he knows more about trees than anyone I know. So definitely been that's like a big part of me, liking the outdoors. And then, to hike the Appalachian Trail, you need to know how to suffer. So wrestling was really good for that. That's how I met Hershey, and consequently Cole was through wrestling.
So when did you start wrestling?
I think I was 7 too. So I started.
Dang, yeah, it's a whole lot of suffering from 7 the
yeah.
whole way. up until college wrestling.
Yeah. It was like, it's funny, like, I think the first like 3 years of wrestling, I didn't even win a match, and I just got beat on by everyone.
I've been there.
But just like, when you finally do win that first match, and then you start, beating kids that you thought were like so much better than you, and you get bigger and stronger and stuff. Wrestling's a really cool sport, and it leads to a lot of suffering, especially if you want to cut weight and.
No doubt. Yeah. If you want to cut weight, especially unintelligently, there's a wealth of suffering for your taking.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was like not eating for like 3 days in a row, not drinking water, all this sauna suits, all that stupid stuff.
Yeah. So when I was in high school, actually, I was not, fortunately, I didn't have a coach that made us cut weight, but I was wrestling maybe 4 days a week in the off season. I was pretty lean, working out every other day in the gym, and I was walking around maybe like 150 pounds, and I had cut weight to get certed at 120, and it was brutal. A lot of secret sauna suit running.
Yeah, that's not allowed by the PIAA.
Yeah, sorry, PIAA. I broke the rules. Revoke all my wins.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, but besides that, I hope I don't want to just bash the whole sport of wrestling. I'm sure you probably feel the same way. The person I am today, in terms of the work ethic I cultivated, I attribute if not entirely, to the sport of wrestling.
Absolutely. I don't think it was funny. I was just working last or 2 weekends ago. I'm trying to do some odd jobs before I settle down on a career. But I worked at a music festival in Scranton I was making rice and fried chicken and stuff for the Chinese food stand, and I was working with the other guy, and like 2 days in, like I mentioned that like I wrestled, and he's like, "Oh, that explains a lot." He's like, "It explains your work ethic," because he had wrestled in high school too, and like we were just sweating, like it was 95 degrees, and we're on the grill, and like it was crazy. But yeah, like it gives you so much. I mean, it takes you into really, really not dark, but like really hard places to be in, and you have to suffer through them to achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah, and I think a wrestling season is still harder than like hiking the Appalachian Trail.
I 100% agree. Something I talk about a lot as soon as I start talking about running is that I 100% believe that the full marathon that I have ran, which was just a single one, was less physically taxing and less mentally taxing than going through a wrestling season, even a high school wrestling season.
Obviously.
If you're a dedicated wrestler that has been training year round and are trying to obsess over peaking at the right time, everything that falls
and if you're in Pennsylvania, obviously.
Yeah, of course. No offense to the New Jersey and California wrestlers out there, but I mean 100% PA's might be the hardest wrestling state.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
Either way.
But so like when I was out on the trail, it's like a hard day. It's like there's never like you just have to haul yourself up the mountain. Like in wrestling, you have to make someone do what they don't want to do against their will, and they're as strong as you, they're as big as you. And you're just literally wrestling them. Like it's crazy.
And what's just as hard, in my opinion, maybe even more harder than that, is when you don't want to get a workout in, you're all alone, and maybe you aren't even cutting weight. Maybe it's the off season and you told yourself, I'm going to shadow drill X amount of days a week.
Yeah.
No one's watching. Like, I feel like that's the work ethic that sets wrestlers apart, because it's so, like, that's the core of wrestling in Pennsylvania, at least.
It's so hard to like drag yourself out of bed to like get down to the gym.
Yeah.
But
anyway, so you grew up as within an outdoorsman-esque family. You could say, and wrestling. Where do you go from there?
Yeah, so I wrestled through high school. I was pretty good. And so I decided I wanted to, wrestle in college. And then...
Are you, like, still hiking a good bit at this time, like in high school?
Not really. I mean, I'm like, I'll go camp with my buddies, but that was, like, more to drink. But it wasn't, like, a big thing I was doing but I wanted to wrestle in college. Messiah had a good engineering program. It was a small school, so I could wrestle there. I wasn't good enough to go D1 or anything. So I wrestled for a year at Messiah.
Yeah,
and
Messiah's like a powerhouse of a
we took
D3 program, though.
third in the nation that year, and my starter at 141 was the national champ. And he beat on me every single day.
Who was that?
Caleb Lote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Met Caleb. He's an animal.
Yeah, he is. I could tell you all about that. But anyway, so we get to the end of that year, and I to show you where I was at mentally. I didn't even look at my grades all year. I just was whatever. And I had a 1.9 GPA. That wasn't gonna fly. I wanted to get an engineering degree, and it wasn't because I wasn't I was doing good on tests. I just wouldn't turn homework in, just stupid stuff. I didn't know how to be a student. So my dad sat me down. He was like, "We're not going to help you. It's college. If you continue to wrestle, you need to get your grades in order. If you want to talk to the coach about taking a year off and coming back, you can do that. But you can't. If you want to help you, you can't wrestle this year. You have to focus on your school."
Right.
So the next year, I buckled down, got my had a 3.3 GPA, which was pretty good for the class I was taking. So I figured that, part out, but since I wasn't wrestling anymore, I was really missing a way to physically challenge myself. And then that's the summer after my sophomore year is when I really started getting more into backpacking, and hiking. I did a couple loops, me and my buddies, with military surplus gear and just rigging it. And, I really fell in love with it. And then after my junior year, I hiked the whole Loyalsock Trail. It's 60 miles in northern PA.
North central, right?
Yeah, it's Tioga County, I think.
Okay,
really cool trail. The Haystacks, which is at the end of it, is one of my favorite places on Earth. But when I got to that sign at the end, that's saying I did it, and 60 miles was a big deal at this point. I'd done probably 30-mile trail before that, but nothing really that big.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to that sign, I was like, I really like this. I really like, completing a trail. And that's when the idea was really born that I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next year with my buddy, we, with the same guy I hiked the Loyalsock Trail with, we hiked from Harper's Ferry, in West Virginia up to Duncannon, which is a 120-mile section of the AT, because you can take a train to Harper's Ferry, so it worked out. So after I graduated college, we did that section, and we kept, we were hiking, we were keeping up with the thru-hikers doing, pretty big days. I was like, yeah, this has definitely got to happen. We're gonna do this. So we made plans the next year, me and my buddy, we were gonna hike it the next year when he graduated college. But he switched majors. Things got changed. So we had to do an extra semester. So from there, it was when we decided to start the AT on January 1st.
And that's of this year.
Yeah, because that was January 1st, 2019. And the original goal, which didn't happen, was to hike the AT and then do the PCT all in one shot, because we had been one of my heroes, I guess, hiking heroes, is this guy named Jeff Garmier. He's he hiked, he's done probably over 30,000 miles, but his adventure that I really latched onto was he hiked the calendar year Triple Crown, which is the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, and the Continental Divide Trail. And that's over 9,000 miles of hiking in a year. And he started the AT in February and headed north. And just his description of doing it in the winter and how intense that was, and how much different the trail was that, it really inspired me. And the whole concept of doing multiple of these trails in a year while you have time off, that really got me going. I wanted to do that. Now the money in my body didn't quite work out for both the trails, but it was really cool to start the Appalachian Trail in the winter, which not that many people do.
Yeah, and just to give everyone an idea, if they aren't familiar, the AT starts in Georgia, correct?
Yeah.
Goes to Maine. Is it 2,100
Yeah,
miles?
2,192. Okay. Not that I was counting.
And how long's the PCT?
The PCT is 2,600 miles, maybe a little more. And then the Continental Divide Trail is just over 3,000 miles.
Okay.
So the PCT goes from Mexico to Canada. like
Oh,
through
really?
California.
For some reason, I thought it was Washington State.
Yeah, you
Canada.
go through Oregon and then Washington State, and then you end on the border of Canada.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And then it's the same deal for the Continental Divide Trail, where you start in Mexico, go up to Canada, but it's like along the Rockies. You follow the Continental Divide. So and those trails are longer, but they're a little easier to go faster on because they're not like they're graded for horses and they're not as rocky. So like he did when Jeff, or his Instagram name is @FreeOutside, definitely follow him, or the Free Outside. But he did the Appalachian Trail in 86 days, and then he did the other two in like around 80 days.
What kind of daily mileage is that?
He was like 33 or something like that. He's a nut.
33 miles a day. That is insane.
But he had done like the PCT before, the Pacific North. Like he had hiked a lot before and been training for this. But
I always said not to talk crap on the AT, but if I could only pick one of those three or any large through hike that I know of, and I could only pick one, I would go PCT.
Yeah,
and that's why it's like has been on my goal list of something just one of the experiences I want to have throughout life is to through hike the PCT.
Yeah, everybody I met that had through hike the PCT and then come to the AT, like they all hated the AT.
Just because it's like similar scenery and
and it's like it is harder. Like you gain 100,000 more feet of elevation and 500 less miles. You're just going straight up, straight down. There's no switchbacks. There's no like drainage, so all the trails are washed out. They're just rocks. And it's wet. It rains all the time. Like it's hard, and it is the same scenery for like 80% of it. Which especially if you like grew up in Pennsylvania, like I did, like I've been seeing this crap like my whole life. So that was definitely like a struggle, especially in the middle of the trail. And I think for a lot, like the Virginia Blues, people talk about that because like Virginia's like
they're like halfway. Or
whatever. It's like a 500-mile state, so you're in it forever, and you're not like. And it's like all the pretty much the same like trees and stuff, and that one got me, especially because I did Virginia in like 2 different parts, and like that was a whole nother story. But
all right, we can start from January 1st. So you started in Georgia with your buddy.
Yeah. So we started January 1st, full of ambition.
A man with a dream.
It rained like 4 days in a row. It was like. It's in the 40s, which like really sucks when it's raining. But I mean, we knew we signed up for starting January 1st.
What kind of gear do you have right away off the start?
So I'm like in my winters, like I'm pretty dialed in. We've been like talking about what gear we're going to bring. I've been testing a lot of stuff. So I'd been on like multiple different winter camping trips. I remember like the one time the year before, it was like, tonight's going to be the coldest night like ever, whatever they were saying. And like, all right, well, we got to go camping and we got to test ourselves. So like we've been doing stuff like that. So my gear was dialed in. I wasn't worried about that. But so I was bringing like I had a 20-degree sleeping bag and a 40-degree over like a sleeping bag that would go on top of that. I was wearing like waterproof boots, waterproof shoes. I was like a fleece that I would hike in and like a wind shirt. I mean, like pretty much you're carrying like twice as much gear as you would in the summer. And that was like, then that's another part of the challenge of being in the winter. You have to bring more fuel, stuff like that. And I was a lot heavier. I was telling you earlier, I started the trail at 210 and I was like 160 when I ended. So I'm carrying a lot of extra weight coming up those hills in Georgia. And like people say, oh, Georgia's easy, like compared to up north, but like not when you're starting. It's not easy.
Yeah, in the winter, holy cow.
Yeah, don't ever tell a hiker that's gonna be easy. But
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I was like literally coming up these hills and like seeing stars and stuff, like a blackout, not remember the climbs. Yeah, it was super intense. But I wanted like that experience. I wanted to like lose the weight and push through it. I knew it was gonna be hard at the beginning. And it's like the first week wasn't too bad weather-wise. I mean, there was rain, but it wasn't too bad. The worst part about Georgia was the mice. Like the mice would so like
get into your food and
stuff? So like they would literally like you'd open a Cliff Bar and they'd come out like in the daytime. Like I've never seen mice in the daytime before.
Whoa.
And this third night of the trail, we just started and we passed by this hostel. You can it says $20 a night. if you want to stay and drive. But we're like, oh, we just started. We're not staying inside. So we hike another mile up the mountain.
Too tough for that.
Yeah, and we set up camp, and like I start cooking dinner, and we set up our like tarp. We didn't even have a tent. We just brought a tarp.
You just have freeze-dried food to make?
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember. We were making pasta with cheese that night with like tuna. And so we're like, I'm cooking it and I spill a little bit. And as soon as I spill it on the ground, these mice like come out. And like there's 3 or 4 mice like circling the tarp, and you can see them. So we like eat as fast as we can. I try to like throw the extra food out and like
get it as far away from where you're sleeping
they're
as
like
possible.
super brave. They're running up like literally like it'll be over your foot. Like we're like trying to hit them with trekking poles, and then we're about to like get up and just go, and it starts to rain. So we're like, yeah, we're not moving in the rain. So like we like get in for the night. It's raining, and like these mice are just crawling over our heads. And before we went in, I hung up my pack with all the food in it to keep it up, to keep the mice from getting to it. And like it starts to rain, and I like set the tarp up so it's angled against the rain. We go to bed, and then like I don't know, a couple hours later, I wake up and I'm soaking wet because the wind has turned and the rain's coming into the tarp. And like,
were you doing light tent, or were you doing a hammock with like a rain trap set up?
We literally had a tarp that over top, and then we had like a ground cloth. We each had our own ground cloth that we'd sleep on. So with no like netting, no like real tent, just like a tarp. So like I prefer that because it's lighter. And we were planning on staying at shelters mostly, so it's like, you know, you could carry a 2-pound or a 2-pound tent and stay in it every night and set it up, or you have this like less than a pound kind of emergency shelter. And so we made the decision, which was kind of dumb, but well, we should have just gone to the shelter that night if we knew it was going to rain, because after that I wouldn't stay out if I knew it was going to rain. But if I had angled the tarp down, like if I'd pulled the one wall down, I would have been fine. I wouldn't have gotten wet, because like I had it up against a tree, and then I had a trekking pole here, and it was kind of angled this way. The rain was coming this way, and then it switched, and the rain started coming in this side that was open.
Gotcha.
If I pulled this edge down, I would have been totally fine, which is like what I did. But I was like asleep already, and I woke up like soaking wet, and I'm like, oh shoot.
Gotcha.
And
so for those not seeing the video, he essentially had one side blocked off of his hammock, like, you know, picture a half side of a tent.
Yeah.
And your other side completely open.
Yeah. And
rain
so
blowing
the rain blows in. I wake up soaking wet. And this is when the mice decide they really want to bother me. So I'm like laying there shivering, like debating if I'm like should get up and hike. I like woke up, put all my rain gear on, got back in my sleeping bag.
Was your buddy totally asleep?
Yeah. Well, he was like asleep, and like he kind of heard me moving, but he was in like the more sheltered part of the tarp setup. So like he was good, and I was just soaking wet. And so like, and then the mice are running over my head, and I'm freezing, wonder if I'm gonna get hypothermia. I'm like, I tell him, I'm like, listen, dude, I might go soon. Like I might have to run back down the mountain. It's like finally survived the night, and like we get up, and I'm like, finally, like I see the sun, so I'm like, all right, we're moving out of here. So I get up, I go over to my pack, and like there's a giant hole that the mouse have chewed through it, and they went and they ate my Parmesan cheese crisps, and I was so pissed because that's like my favorite food. And as I'm like surveying the damage, soaking wet, like, why am I doing this? Like this dad and his 9-year-old daughter are walking by about to finish up their thru hike, and I'm like, she just did this. And I'm right now like, wow, is this?
Dang, they started in Maine and went to Georgia.
They had started Maine and Georgia. They started in like July. So yeah, this 9-year-old girl is just finishing up the AT, and I'm like soaking wet like an idiot. I have no idea what I'm doing, and it was just like super humbling. So we like, luckily the day before we met this guy who gave us his phone number and was like, if you need anything, call me. So we hiked to the next gap, and we got a ride back to that hostel that we'd passed the day before. And like I insisted that we stop because I was like, all my stuff was wet, and it was going down below freezing the next night. So I was like, if I can't stay out in this, like I'm gonna get hypothermia. So it was like we reset, and after that, like if it was gonna, like there was any chance of rain, we were staying in a shelter, and I pretty much stayed in shelters the rest of the trail. just because like when I went, there really wasn't that many people.
Mm-hmm.
So like people don't like staying in the shelters because there's always like a group of people there and it'll be packed and you're sleeping next to strangers and it's kind of gross. But like I hiked the first 1,000 miles without, like we shared a shelter 3 times. And 2 of those were the first 2 nights of the trail. So
yeah, it probably beats sleeping outside in the winter when you're wet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was really nervous that night that like I was going to get hypothermia, like stuff was going to go bad. I was getting ready to just get up and like run back just to get my temperature up.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, but after that, we figured things out a little more.
So what happened with your pack though? You said it got like a hole in it. Did you ditch that or?
I tried to like tape it. The tape would always fall off, but like, that didn't get any bigger. Like the hole was big enough that it was like probably this big and like stuff wouldn't fall out.
It was manageable.
And the hole didn't grow at all. So whatever, I think it was Cordura nylon that Granite Gear uses is tough stuff. So shout out to them. So I used that pack for the first like 900 miles of the trail.
Okay.
Because it was like a little bigger volume. I needed it to fit all my winter gear in. And then when I eventually did take some time off the trail, I sewed up a new pack to take for my like summer gear. It was smaller, and I'd been like thinking about like what would the perfect pack look like and what features do I want. So I was home for like 3 weeks with like nothing to do, so I had left like scrap fabric and I sewed up one, and that was pretty cool. But like to get to that point, we hiked like I don't know, we went through like I struggled with the reason we got off trail then. I guess I'll do it like this. Was because of like plantar fasciitis. My feet were all jacked up.
Right. And this is once you're up in West Virginia, right?
Virginia. We were in like the Shenandoahs.
Okay.
But I
900 miles in.
Yeah, we'd like just passed 900 miles when we went into town. But like I wasn't like thinking about that stuff because like after that first week, it got like pretty intense with the weather. I mean, we're all through like Tennessee and North Carolina. We were walking through snow and like it was like in the teens or like single digits every night. So like it's like when you're hiking in the cold, there's just so much more things you have to like worry about, like keeping your water filter from freezing because if it freezes it'll crack and then it's not gonna filter the water. You got to keep your fuel warm at night because if you don't have it warm, you're not gonna be able to like heat up your coffee in the morning. You gotta like you could do this, but we didn't. Like you could sleep with your boots and like keep them from freezing. But like every morning, my boots are frozen completely solid, and you gotta like the night before you gotta completely unlace them so they're super loose, so you can put them on, walk a mile, and then they're thawed out. You can tighten them up again. Like everything, like if you sweat, then you're like gonna get cold from the sweat. So like,
did you dress like kind of lighter than? Say if you were in a PA winter storm and you're walking to class or something like that, and you had like a big winter coat.
Yeah, because
you intentionally dress lighter to avoid sweating.
Yeah, definitely. But like I'm just like such a sweaty person that is kind of like
a hydrated person.
Yeah. That was like my one good feature as a wrestler. Like I could sweat weight off like a champ. But which was funny because my buddy when we were in high school and wrestling, he could never sweat. Like it took him so much to cut weight and sweat, and so it was like. Back then, I was like always, I can sweat more than you. It was cool. And then it like flipped because he's not as cold as I am because I'm soaked in sweat and it's 20 degrees outside.
It's the same buddy that you're with hiking with.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So it was like kind of funny how like roles reversed there. But yeah, so like, I mean, most of the days I would hike in just like a base layer, like a polyester like t-shirt. I had a long sleeve shirt and then my wind layer. And if it was really cold, I'd add a fleece to that. But you have to start out really cold to be comfortable hiking. Mm-hmm. And I don't like, especially with my feet, because if like when I stopped, my feet would hurt more starting again. So I didn't really ever want to stop hiking. So I would always like start off the like first in the morning just freezing. Like it was like a half an hour of being miserable. And then you like catch your groove. Yeah, I can't either. I don't really know how I did it. That was like the first 2 months of the trail were pretty tough. Just with the cold, like I've never, and I was losing weight the whole time, so I'm like slowly getting less and less like insulated to the cold.
When you started, what kind of miles were you doing from like, say in Georgia? What miles?
We were doing like 15 to 20 a day.
Oh, okay. So
which was Probably
Kind of
not
like-
good for my feet.
Okay. Do you wish you had dialed it back a little bit to?
Probably. But I don't know. I mean, it was what it was. I had to get into shape. I probably would have taken it a little easier. But, I mean, I don't know. We'd done like mileage like that before, but not like, I don't really think I realized how, because we'd done that one like 120 miles in like a week. And that's like around 20 miles a day average. And we had felt fine with that. But like doing that week in and week out is a whole different ball game. So I kind of do wish I had let myself get a little more adjusted, because I did, like after I got back on the trail for my feet, I took the mileage down a bit and it was a little more enjoyable. And then like as I got towards the end of the trail, I was ramping up the miles, and like I finished the last 120 miles I did in 4 30-mile days.
Dang.
So, I mean, I had to be there to like meet my sister, but it was, I was cruising. But yeah, I mean, that's like if I was anyone starting a through hike, like 10 to 12 a day at the beginning is probably smart.
And slowly ramp to like 20.
Because you will get the miles. I mean, there's nothing to do but hike. You'll find it. Or just like, yeah, if you want to hike that many miles, like do it, but take breaks during the day and like.
Yeah.
Because we weren't taking any breaks because it was so cold. Like if you stopped, you'd like it was so hard to even like filter water. Like you stop for 5 minutes and you're like chattering, and like your hands are getting wet because you're like filling up the water.
And you said you got frostbite too, right?
Yeah, I got. So it was funny. Like I didn't really realize at the time what it was, and like I kept smelling my feet, and they were like rotting cheese.
Ugh.
And then so I didn't know, like I was just like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna ignore that and we're gonna keep going.
Oh man.
And then
seems like a bad thing to ignore.
It was like I was disgusting whenever I would get inside like a walled in area and I could smell myself. It was awful. Like I smell in the bad normally, but I was like, this is extra bad. And so like when I was getting my feet checked out for plantar fasciitis, the doctor like looks at my feet, he's like, yeah, you got a little frostbite there.
A touch of the frostbite.
Makes sense. And like I was like, is that why it smells so bad? He's like, yeah, that'll rot off eventually. And he's like, you don't want to. I was like, should I like try to sand it off or something? He's like, no, that'll do more damage. So
when do you think you started to get frostbite?
I think it was like in the Smokies. It was probably like 200 miles in. We had a good 2 or 3 weeks where every single day we were walking in snow, and like.
And you made it the whole way to Virginia with that bothering you? That is insane. I'm glad you still have your feet.
Yeah, I'm probably pretty lucky. It didn't like it was. He said it was superficial. There probably wouldn't be any nerve damage or anything.
Yeah,
but he's like, you'll find out next winter. if, like when it gets cold, if your feet get really cold, then you'll know. I was like, yeah. Because I'd always joked about before the trail, I was like, I'll be pissed if I don't get a little frostbite. But I was picturing on like my ear or my nose. I wasn't picturing my feet because I kind of need those.
Maybe the most pertinent part of the hike.
Yeah, that is what, like, once I got into it, like nothing ever, like my knees never hurt. Well, my knees hurt a little in New Hampshire. That's just because how ridiculous the terrain was. But like, my muscles were never really sore, my calves, my quads, like everything was like always pretty fine. Like I could always find that kind of energy to keep walking, but it was all how far I went was always how my feet felt. So
I gotcha. So I know we bounced around a little bit because we were talking about the entry. Once you we'll say get through Georgia, and I'm assuming where's the Smokies start?
That's in Tennessee, so that's like
I guess they started further up than I had thought.
Yeah, it's like you use like 78 miles of Georgia, and then you do about 100 miles in just North Carolina, and then you climb up into the Smokies, which is like the border of North Carolina and Tennessee, and then you're on the border there for a while. The Smokies were really cool because most people when they go there, it's super crowded. I think it's second most visited national park, and there's always like a hassle with like reserving a campsite and stuff.
Is that next to like Yosemite or something? I
think Shenandoah is the most, but that's just because you're near Washington D.C.
Oh, okay.
You're just near like stuff. Like, so we had like the Smokies to ourselves, and it was really cool because you go the first 2 days, it's basically just climbing up for like 30 miles. You're slowly going to like the peak, and like those days were like cloudy and snowy, so we didn't see anything. And then the morning that you climb Clingman's Dome, which is the highest point on the whole trail, it was clear, and like we just burst out above everything in this crazy epic view. And it was like the valleys were filled with clouds, so it looked like an ocean, and like the other mountains out there were islands, and like it was just unbelievable.
You're gonna convince me to go to the Smokies.
Yeah, do it in the winter when no one else is there.
Do you know what the elevation is?
It's like 6,500.
Oh man.
So it's not like, I mean, compared out west, it's not that high.
Right.
But
what's like the elevation change from where you start the incline, or were you pretty close to sea level at, you know, like at the start of the Smokies?
Yeah, so Fontana Dam is like around 800 feet.
Oh, okay. So you're making most of that 6,000 feet climb.
Yeah. From the start of, like, so there's like I think it's like a 5,000 foot climb over the first 13 miles of the Smokies, where you climb from Fontana Dam to the first shelter, and then you kind of bounce around up top for like slowly going up, but it's like up 500, down 500. But like, you know, the Smokies are hard. It's a long climb to get up there, but they're pretty nice because you do stay on top the whole way through. So it's
a lot of ridge hiking.
Yeah, it's not that bad. Plus, a lot of people complain about how rocky and rooty it is, and how the trail, because that's the only part of the trail that's like never been moved, is through the Smokies. Like most other parts of the trail have been rerouted in some way. So you have these like drainage ditches, and that's the trail. But there's like 4 inches of snow and like pretty good ice. So, and I had my ice cleats on, so it was actually like super easy to just like cruise over the top of all that. So like 4 inches of snow isn't bad. Like shin deep snow sucks.
I can imagine.
But we didn't, like, I had, like, when in my research, that Free Outside guy, when he was in the Smokies, he had like a 4-foot blizzard, and he had to like get out of there through that, and like 15 miles in a day of like hiking. Like, he's just like, I'd read stories like that, and I was like all jacked up for the Smokies, and we got through it pretty safe. But I was prepared for the worst there. And then like we got our big snowstorm like 100 miles after that. Like, well, we were still, it's basically the same mountains, you know, just a little farther north.
What time is this then, month-wise, when
This
you're
is like
in the
the
Smokies?
Second week of January.
Oh, wow, you got there pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing we probably did like 100 miles a week. So maybe it was the third week of January. I'd have to go back and check. But I do know that like we were leaving Tennessee, like we got out of Tennessee and into Virginia like the first week of February. And it was like the last week of January was like the worst with the snow, like literally like shin deep snow for a week.
And up until, you know, you had to get off the trail, you were like the fastest known time in 2019, right?
Yeah, we were like out front. We were number 1. There was like this one guy who was in front of us for a while up until like Tennessee. And then like there was the night where it was the coldest on the trail. It got to like -8 before wind chill. After that night, we did not see his name in the logbook anymore. So I think that broke him.
Hopefully he's okay.
I think so. I talked to a guy at Hostel that like had talked to him when he quit, so I knew he was alive. So that was good.
Some good old hostel.
Oh, it's crazy how much they know. Like they know everything that goes up and down the Hostel network. Like they're all friends. They all chat, and like you can figure out where anyone is if you just ask. It's hilarious.
Dang.
They're just all friends, like because they meet up at like Trail Days, which is like a hiker festival every year in May, and like they're all like obsessed with Thru-hiking. That's why they made a hostel, because it's like you're not gonna make that much money running a hostel.
I had not realized the hostels were kind of specific to the AT.
Yeah, I mean the ones near the trail are all pretty AT specific. I mean they'll obviously take other people, but that's mostly what they're.
But that was the incentive for putting them there.
It's mostly people like thru-hiked or like had a job in finance, hated it, did a thru-hike, and took their money and bought a hostel, stuff like
Good
that.
for them.
Yeah, it's awesome. That might be a cool thing to do.
Anyway, after the Smokies, where do you go from
there?
there?
So like after the Smokies, you go on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee for a couple 100 miles, and that's when we went through like the coldest night. That was a crazy day because like the day started at like 40 degrees, so it's a great day. It's like almost summer, and then it starts to snow, and it was on this part, and I was misled in this, but some guy told me that this section was called the Tennessee Turnpike. It was like real flat, and you could do 40 miles in a day or something. or maybe it was 30. I think it was 30. And like, so I'm thinking this is gonna be easy. Let's bang this out and we'll get to the next town. And like, because I knew it was gonna snow. And so it looked flat on the like the elevation map, but it's like Appalachian flat, so it's like down 100, up 200, down, like it's just up and down. And it was like all as the snow accumulated, and you got like 6 inches of snow on the rhododendrons. They're just hanging over the trail and just smacking you in the face the whole way. And I just lost my mittens, so all I had was like my like waterproof over mitts, and like, so it's like all day of just snow, and I'm like completely soaking wet. And we're at like mile 18, and I look behind him. My buddy hasn't been talking that much, and it's weird because he's a pretty talkative guy, and he just like did not look good. And I was like, let me see your hands. He like pulls them out, and they're like purple.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh shit, like we gotta figure this out. I was like, all right, we're stopping here. We're not hiking anymore today. And I like ran down the hill to get water, like filled up the pot, ran back up, put it on. And I gave him the soup packet. I was like, all right, well, as soon as that's ready, drink that. And I ran back down to get more water. And I think the running up and down helped me a lot. And then I got him to hold the soup, and like you could see the life coming back into him. And I was like, all right, well, like we get changed, get all our wet stuff off. And then we just like set up in the shelter and just like ate and drank a lot of soup, and we finally got warm. And then like, of course there's no service at this place. So like we told people that we were going to like be at this, at this hostel, ahead, but we like decided we couldn't make it. And then like, so that night was the only night that I was like close to being too cold in my sleeping bag, because it would take me like a half an hour to like warm up my sleeping bag and like be warm. But because I had drinking so much soup, I kept having to like go to the bathroom, and like the wind's like whipping through. There's like a polar vortex going on in Chicago. It was like just a crazy night. And like that was the first time where I was like I understood when people are in like survival scenarios and they just give up. Like I felt like that urge to like I felt cold, and I was like shivering, and I was like, I could just give up and lay here. Let me just like take a little break. And it was like no, you can't do that. Like,
and then that good old wrestling mentality.
Yeah, get the fuck up. Like we gotta go. Like
yeah,
and run down the mountain, get some water. But it was really crazy to like face that. Like that was a really intense like situation, and I could tell that my buddy was going through the exact same thing. Like he just wanted to we just wanted to give up. Like but you literally, there's nothing. No one's gonna come save you. Like no one's gonna help you. Like you got to figure it out.
Right. What do you say that's, I don't know, something you kind of learned about yourself, like that you would actually respond that way in that intense survival?
Yeah. I felt really good out. Like after we got into town the next day and we were at McDonald's and chilling, like I felt really good about how we had handled that and like gotten through. And I had been listening to like, I forget what the guys' names were, but they were on Joe Rogan. They were the Everest rescuers. There's two
I didn't
guys,
hear that one.
But they talked a lot about like the hardest part about rescuing people is when you get up there and they've already given up, and like convincing them that it's worth fighting for to like come back, because they can't drag people down at that elevation.
Yeah.
But just like the lessons I learned from that podcast, where it's like your biggest danger is if you just quit, and as long as you don't like stop moving, you'll probably be fine. Because like they were just telling all these crazy stories where people would like come back from like literally like they were written off and like dead, but they didn't stop moving, and they figured it out and they got off the mountain. And
on that final summit, I've heard that there's just bones everywhere because you can't bring them back down. Like at that altitude and at that temperature, it's not feasible to bring human bodies down up there for good. Yeah,
and that's like that's really crazy. I don't think I'll ever be climbing Everest, but
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
for me,
that's a crazy podcast. I gotta find who the guys were, because that's definitely one you should listen to.
Not to go off on too far of a tangent, but I just listened to a story told by Colin O'Brady, the guy who just hiked across Antarctica, and he also did you might know the challenge name better than I do, but the 7 Peaks challenge.
Yeah, it's the Explorers Grand Slam.
Yeah, so doing the 7 highest peaks, like the highest peak on each continent.
Yeah, and the poles. He went to the North and South Pole and the 7 Peaks. That's like the Grand Slam,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's where I was listening to, I guess he did Everest in whatever days. It's like 121 days or something like that.
Yeah.
Something,
No, he did all of them in like
that's why
121 days.
I
Yeah.
misworded, but yeah, like within bouncing around, he flew up and down Everest, and to make sure he stayed within his 121 day time frame for all of his hikes. When he was doing Everest, there was, I guess, a big backup on going to the summit because it's like blizzarding, I guess, and there's a guide rope that you aren't supposed to wander off of.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it's blizzarding on the top of Everest, but to make sure they stayed within that time frame, they like unlocked their, I don't know, harness or whatever from that guide rope, so that way they could bypass the long line of people tiptoeing their way to the top, and kind of went off on their own little.
It's like sounds like my nightmare.
Yeah.
Just a line of people on a mountain.
Yeah, on one of the most deadliest mountains, if not the deadliest mountain on Earth.
No, that's I listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan a couple times. Just like with what he was talking about, like what motivates him, and like his take on like bringing positive light into like what you want to accomplish. Like I thought about that stuff a lot when I was hiking.
Have you ever gone into any sort of, I don't want to say something as loose as intentional self-talk, but even like meditation or anything that's some sort of self-growth related thing specific to like while you were hiking, or have you done any of that just because to train for the AT hike?
Yeah, I think there was like times where like I would, like this is like the one really good example I'm thinking of. The song Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba?
I don't, but I'm going to have to give it a listen right after this.
Like he's like, you knock me down, I get back up, and like I was having a rough day in Maine, and I think I said that to myself for like you knock me down, I get back up. I said that to myself for like 2 hours straight hiking, and like this was the fastest I'd hiked all week, and like I just kept like repeating that. It was like a pretty good mantra, and like there's different things I would like latch on to, different songs or like different podcasts where like David Goggins is a good example
he
of
is
like
a maniac.
Just like his transformation from like where he was being like 300 pounds and eating donuts to like a Navy SEAL, like doing Ranger school and like
ultra marathon runner.
Yeah.
Ran his first ultra marathon in a 3 days notice without training. Then ran 100 miles.
He's like bleeding out of everywhere. And like, and then like after that, he was like, all right, well, I signed up for the Las Vegas marathon, but I'm just going to walk it. Cause like, I'm not going to push it. And then he's like, as soon as the whistle blew, I just took off running. Like that was crazy. I listened to, so when I did the 4-state challenge, which is you hike from Pennsylvania to Maryland through West Virginia and then into Virginia in a day. It's like 45 miles. So my goal is to hike 45 miles in 24 hours. So I listened to Colin Brady, David Goggins, and Cameron Haynes like in the overnight push to get to the end.
Did you intentionally line those up for that stretch?
Yes.
Good call.
I'd listened to one of them. I didn't listen to the one with Cameron Haynes before, but I'd listened to the other two. And I follow Cameron Haynes on Instagram, so I like what he does.
He's like a big runner and hunter, right?
Yeah, he's a big bow hunter, and then he runs ultra marathons to support his bow hunting.
Interesting.
He's a beast.
Motivational reason to get into ultra marathon running.
Yeah,
I can see a few 5Ks here and there, but running 100 miles to help your bow hunting career sounds
he runs a
wild.
marathon a day to train. Like he'll get like 13 in before work, and then like run a half marathon as lunch break, and then lift and shoot. And he has like kids and a wife, and like the kids are like well adjusted and like achieving things, and so it's like he's a super cool guy.
Dang.
I'll
have to listen to that guy.
Yeah, definitely Cameron Haynes. He's the man. And he like his take on because I hunt. I'm obviously not as good as him. But his, like, when he talks about, like, respecting the animal and how much honor there is in, like, a successful bow hunt, it's really cool to hear his perspective on that. I feel like people should listen to him.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard his take on it, but just from what you're talking about, the idea that hunting and fishing and trapping don't negate your appreciation of nature, actually can add on to it. I agree. I think it's something. I mean, I'm guessing your dad instilled in you and your whole family, but I agree.
Well, and like the people that are paying for the conservation of these big wild spaces that we're allowed to walk through in America, like mostly hunters. So, I mean, it's an interesting like way to look at like if you want to, it's almost like you have to commodify. That's like a kind of a bad way to put it, but like you have to make the land valuable to people for it to be saved. Because if it's not invaluable to anyone, it's just gonna go away. And like the hunters have made it valuable, and they put a lot of money. Cabela's like donates a ton of money to saving land and stuff. So, and like hikers and hunters have like not bad interactions, but like I mean on the Appalachian Trail you hike through the game lands in PA, and so it's important for everybody that loves outdoors, to get along and like respect each other's goals. And that goes to even like from hikers and like people that like to mountain bike or like to ATV. Like those are all, valid ways to enjoy the outdoors, and hikers can get a little uppity about it. So
because they don't want people like intruding on the natural
and they just
ecosystem.
They think that they're like this is the only way you can truly enjoy it, and I don't necessarily agree with that.
Debatable.
Yeah. But
anyway,
back to the trail.
back to the good old AT story. I can't even think of exactly where we were talking about on the trail last. I know we were
getting to February.
Getting to February. Holy cow! All right, so we're in February.
So then we get out of we had 2 rough weeks of snow, and that's when I showed you that picture of my feet. That was after that.
Believe me, if you are in any way sensitive to traumatic wound pictures, you don't want to see the picture of his feet. But believe me, I cannot believe he didn't go to the doctor much earlier.
No, I wasn't gonna quit that.
But you didn't want to look at them, right?
No, I just would literally put my socks on and forget about them. Like I just was like, because they were like looked like a brain was like forming on the bottom of my feet, and like they were raw and red, and like I was just like I didn't want anything to come into my head that would make me want to quit, because I was like, I knew that what would stop me would be my body. I knew that mentally I could do it, but like an injury or something bad was going to stop me, and I just didn't want to lose momentum. Especially coming from like where I was. I mean, the trail was kind of like a reset for me, because I was, I gained a lot of weight after wrestling, and probably cutting weight had something to do with that, but then just not doing anything physically and eating a bunch of junk food, stuff like that. So like I came out on the trail to like hike the trail, but also to lose weight and kind of reset my life. So I didn't want to think about anything that would stop that.
Yeah.
And so as we were coming up through Virginia, my feet were just hurting worse and worse, not related to frostbite, which is what I had, but they were just, it was plantar fasciitis, where like the arch of my foot would get super inflamed and super painful, especially like once I started walking, it would like stretch the tendon out and it would be okay. But like in the morning and at night, like I couldn't even, like I would just hobble around camp, and like the final straw was like the one night, like I literally, it hurt so bad on my feet that I had to use 2 trekking poles to take the bear bag over to the pole to hang it, and like, or else I would have fallen over. Dang. And I literally like crawled back. And like at that point I was like, I got to get this checked out. And that didn't help that night was also like a really cold night too. So that was like, this sucks. Like I'm going to cripple myself, and
probably makes it like,
yeah,
I guess more stiff in the morning when it was colder.
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that, but probably, unless they were supposed to be iced, just leave them outside and the inflammation would go down. But I went to the doctor, and he was like, you'll be able to finish your hike, but you just got to take a little time off, stretch your feet out. And he so gave me like stretches to do and an insert to put in my shoe. And so then it was like, we were in town, but I didn't really want to spend a lot of money. Like, a couple, like I could have taken like 4 days off probably and like been able to get back after it. But I was like, no, I'm going home. And then my buddy came home with me. So I ended up taking like 3 weeks off the trail and like just stretching, rolling it out with a tennis ball.
And that's when you sewed your
and that's when I sewed my bag. So like before the trail, like I brought out Like I'd gotten into like sewing my own gear as kind of a way to pass time before the trail, because like I'll just get home from work, or like I would think at work all day while I wasn't doing anything. Like I could be sewing this, or I could be hiking, and like I had all this energy and like ADD like adventure brain to like I want to do something to get ready. So I got really into like sewing outdoor gear. So I'd made my 40-degree like over quilt that I was using, my raincoat I had sewed, my rain pants. I'd sewed like sleeping bags and a couple prototype packs, and like just random stuff for people. So like while I was on the trail, I would like keep notes about like what I wanted for my perfect pack. So while I was home, I like sewed it up. And it was like I got off trail in like March, got back on like at the end of March. So it was kind of spring. So I could switch to like a smaller, more summer, gear. I didn't have ice cleats. Didn't have like an extra jacket and all like a big woolen socks, all that stuff I got to leave behind. So I came back out with like half the weight. It was awesome.
When's the Jacob Younger hiking gear company coming out?
We're
dude?
working on it.
Really?
We're working on it. Yeah.
Is it an actual thought you have?
Yeah. I definitely have a couple ideas like what direction I want to go with it. So my buddy, I had like a blog, and my buddy who did the website for the blog is interested in like working on a company with me. So I'm actually going out to Colorado in a couple weeks here, and I might live out there or maybe just spend a month like coming up with plans to start a company. Right now my thought is, and I have like a ton of ideas bouncing around my brain, but just selling kits for people to sew themselves, because there is a market. Like there's a decent amount of people like out on the internet that sew their own gear, like this niche I found like on Reddit. And because I'm not like the neatest sewer, and it's like I want to be involved with the trail somehow. And I have like all the drawings that I made, and like so I'm thinking maybe selling kits or making some kind of trail related app for now, just to get my toe in the market.
I gotcha.
Because my friend's like a web developer, and he's pretty smart. But my dream is to make an outdoor company.
Gotcha. If you had an awesome pack company, you'd put both the engineering education and the love for hiking both to very good use.
Absolutely. And like I love thinking about like, the stress goes here, and you got to figure out a way to handle it, and like it all makes sense to me. And it's kind of funny because like I just assumed everybody thought like this, and I'd be like talking all about my pack to people on the trail, and like I just see that it's all going right over their head. It's like, all right, I might have a skill for this. So like that
certainly the market for it.
Yeah. So I definitely want to stay involved with the trails. I'm gonna get a real job now. I gotta pay my credit card.
What's that
down.
gonna be?
So the one I'm looking at, I just applied to. You inspect power lines. You just walk along power lines and travel around and go into different areas and like inspecting power lines. So that seems like a good deal because they like put you up during the week. So I don't like need to pay rent anywhere. I'll just figure out what to do on the weekends. But like my goal is to get some money together to where I could to take a shot to like start my own company, and then maybe even like do something on the side, like making small orders and like custom stuff for people. I'm already like scheming up my next pack I want to sew. I was hoping to have it done before my trip with Hershey on the Loyal Sock next week or this weekend, I guess, but that's not gonna happen. But
already back on the trail so
absolutely
soon.
I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Dang.
That was like when I knew like when I got off the trail the first time, I was really nervous. Like I'm going to get home and I'm not going to want to leave. Like I'm just going to want to be done with this. And there was like 2 days where I really thought I was going to quit. I was like beating myself up. And then like
on that first stretch.
Yeah. And I was just like, I got like the one morning I got up, rolled my feet out, and I was like, nah, fuck that. Like we're going to we're going to hike the trail. Like I got to fix my feet first, but this is not like the end. Like I'm not gonna be finished. Like I kind of wanted to finish first. Like I kind of wanted to or be in like the top 10. Like, I was like, whatever, we'll let go of that, but like we're gonna finish this trail.
I'm glad you pulled through, dude.
Yeah, me too.
So you took the 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
Sewed and healed up.
Yeah.
What happens when you get back on?
It was great. Like the weather was nice again. It was like 60 during the day, 40 at night. I started meeting like a lot of other thru hikers. And it was cool. Like I hiked from Allentown south to where I left off in Virginia. So I did like a flip-flop kind of deal.
Were you on the AT, like going?
I was on the AT just going south.
Right, just because you wanted
Yeah, well, I
to
wanted
be able to say that you hit all the miles through.
Yeah, so like
I wanted. Did it bother you walking in the reverse direction of where you wanted to be going?
So like, ideally, I would have gone back to where I left off and kept doing it all in one direction, but. Like I wanted to make sure my pack was gonna work out. I'd left a bunch of winter stuff at home, so if it was gonna be like colder, I wanted to be able to get my gear back to me like quickly. And it was a lot easier to get someone to drop me off 20 minutes from my house than 5 hours from my house.
All right.
And in the back of my head, I knew my friend was gonna be in that area in like 3 weeks, so I picked my spot to where I thought I could get there in 3 weeks and then like get a free ride back. So it just worked out to go that way. And I didn't know if my feet were gonna how my feet were gonna be, because if I had gone out and like a week later I was in that same exact pain again, like, I don't know if it would have been worth it. Right. But like when I got back on, my feet were like amazing. It was those first like couple days were just like the best. I mean, obviously they slid back into like a certain acceptable level of pain, but it really wasn't that bad from then on. Like I could if I hiked like a 30-mile day, I was feeling it the next day. But if I was like 15 to 20, it was good. It was all good.
Gotcha.
So then like it was really cool that part, because like I was hiking south and like watching spring come north. So like in the Shenandoahs, like I'm up on top of the mountains, it's all brown, and the valleys are like lush and green. You kind of watch spring like coming up the mountains. It was really cool.
That's wild.
Yeah, like walking through the seasons was like a really. I don't think I'll do it again. I'm good on winter hiking for a while, but it was really cool to like see everything change.
Was there any serious trials, anything like the plantar fasciitis coming on or the frostbite coming on when you got back on, or was it kind of smooth sailing from there?
Yeah, that crazy stuff didn't really happen on the second half. So I'm trying to think like so I went south, went up to PA, and then I head north from PA, and like the only real issues were like I kept having like weddings and bachelor parties to go to.
Sounds like a good issue to
have. It was cool. I got really good at the public transportation system. But like the couple days back after that were a little tough.
Were you showing up at bachelor parties and weddings just smelling disgusting?
Yeah, and I would have to like go to Goodwill to like buy clothes. Like I had people like for the weddings, I had someone bring me a suit and stuff. Like I had clothes, but like for the bachelor party, I just showed up and was like, I talked to a couple of my buddies and they like somehow didn't bring clothes for me, and so I'm like hitting Walmart and stuff. But that was fun. It was all like it's just funny because like people are in their cars. And you're like, they have everything they need, and you're just like, everything's in my pack. Like my whole life is here. I'm not equipped to deal with real society. I'm only good for walking in the woods right now. They smell terrible. Luckily, the rotten cheese from my feet was gone by then, but I didn't smell good.
I bet.
I shower like once a week, and like I'll still walk. Like I got rid of some of the clothes I took on the trail, but some of the stuff was like I don't want to get rid of it, and it like I've washed it like 6 times and it still smells bad.
Oh man!
So that's like in a plastic bag, tied up. But like, and it was like cool because like I was meeting other like thru hikers, because like that first part, like I didn't meet another thru hiker on the first 900 miles. My first thru hiker I met was like going south in Pennsylvania. And he was like, "Oh man, like I've seen your name in the registers. Like, what are you doing going this way?" And that so it was cool. And like I've actually that guy was villain, and it was funny because like he then went forward and stopped in in Vermont. He got held up with like real bad weather and took a month off. So like I thought I'd never see him again. And then like randomly in New Hampshire, like we ran into each other again. It was like, holy shit, dude, what's up? So that was cool. And just like, you know, meeting all these like crazy people that have like everyone has a different reason for being on the trail. Like I met a hike with this guy who was like 70 years old, and he's through hiking and like doing as many miles as I was, and he's just like a beast. And he was like, he worked for the VA, so he'd like, and like counseling like war veterans and stuff. So we had all these like really cool stories, and like stuff that like kind of like, yeah, this sucks, but like your life could be so much worse. Like you're just walking in the woods for fun. So that, like, you know, was good for my mentality up there.
I almost regret drawing us back.
Yeah.
I think I'll regret it more if I don't. You said everyone has a different reason for being in the trail, kind of in passing, but
Yeah.
what was your reason for being on the trail?
I think I wanted an adventure to reset my life. I think that's how I can most succinctly say it.
Did you accomplish that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like, my aunt asked me, like, do you feel like a new person? And like, I feel like it's cliche to say it, but like, I definitely am. Like, I feel like I always knew kind of what I wanted. Like, I always wanted a life that, you know, I was achieving the most I could, and, you know, staying in good shape, and like achieving stuff in my career and with my body, and, you know, in my relationships and stuff. And I feel like when I was in that rut before the trail, like I knew what I wanted, but I was in the rut, you know, like it was so hard to get out. And like with who I am as a person, like I need to do crazy stuff to change. So like This was a crazy thing I had to do to like push myself into a new lane. And I feel like something I really reflected on at the end of the trail was like, you did this. And like, you know, as you're coming in on Katahdin, and it's like, that's not the podium. Like that's a stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the mentality I've been trying to keep after this, is like, I'm on a good track now. Like I feel good about my life, and like, even though I'm very in debt, not debt, I'm broke and my credit card's maxed out, and like I'm nowhere to live, but like I feel really good about where I'm going, and like I don't want to lose that. And so that's something I like think about every day, is like, how am I continuing what I started? Like I didn't want to be out there like running away from anything. Like a lot of people do that, but the people that are running away usually quit. I wanted to run to something. So.
Right. That's inspiring. I like that. I don't know. I just try to surround myself with anyone that has a bigger vision for themselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a mirroring reflection of the same things I'm pursuing.
Yeah.
But just,
well, that'd be boring.
Yeah, exactly. But just recognizing and pursuing what I like to describe as a limitless human potential.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that, and even to feel in a rut and feel like everything around you is kind of going wrong. Maybe not going wrong, but certainly not going how you would like it to be.
Wasn't as good as it could have been.
Exactly.
Like, I was like doing good. I had a good job, you know, making money out of my own apartment. Like,
and it's easy to see where a lot of well-intentioned people, a lot of people with, you know, big dreams will get stuck in that. I'd be like, I guess it's just how it is now. Like I have to keep this job for a really long time and whatnot.
Like, everyone told me not to start in January, and they were probably right, but I'm like so happy I didn't listen to them. Because like, I don't know, pushing through that, like I really feel like I earned my spot on the trail, and like, I don't know, there's a lot to like build on in the future. It's like, if I can do that, like if I can go to those dark places and like push through, like being that out of shape and being that cold, and like imagine what I can do if I have a good footing and I'm still willing to go back there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've been thinking about a lot.
Even as cliche as it may sound, you can't go through something like that and not become a different person because of it. And if you can push through, you're going to become a better person because of
That's
it.
the goal.
Have you ever listened or read any of Ed Milet's stuff?
No.
One of his well-known phrases that I've kind of latched on to is that he says, I'm in a constant crisis to get to the next best version of myself.
That's cool. I like that.
And I guess what you was, I don't know, going on about needing a change in your life is I kind of like attaching on to always looking for the change. Like, what's the next thing I can attack? Maybe it's like, you know, some attribute you have that's like puts you in a negative light. Maybe it's like an accolade in your career. Maybe it's building a stronger relationship. But just like, not only is it okay to change, it's actually a great thing to be constantly searching for how you can become better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad you found that.
Yeah. Well, now I gotta find the next thing, you know.
That's what it's about, right? The journey.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because like now I've done this like physical challenge. So it's like, what's the next challenge? Like I think the next thing for me is like, how do I need to address like conflict better and be able to like step in to that. And I feel like the best way for me to address that, like having conflict and like not even just like conflict, but interaction would be like starting your own company. Like that's a whole list of conflicts you got to get through. People you have to make the phone calls. You have to be tough, and like so that's kind of what I'm thinking of as like the next real thing is like that's the next. You know, I'm in pretty good shape now, and it's like I feel weird if I don't run now. Like I'm like I drove back from Maine, and I'm like sitting in the car all day. I'm like I need to do something. And as soon as I got home, I went. Like I only ran like 2 miles, but like I needed to do something. So like I've got like not that I've got that taken care of, but I'm in like a good groove with that. So now it's like the next step like is my career because like kind of ran away from that for 6 months, and now I got to get after that. So that's what this trip to Colorado is about, and hopefully kind of figuring out a little bit, but I don't like to plan too much. So
we'll find some more conflict, some conflict that makes you grow.
To address it, I gotta get in there.
I think we need it, dude. I mean, didn't plan on taking this down a philosophical path, but I think I don't know, are most alive if we have conflict within our control, as in choosing the conflict. I want to take on this career. I want to take on this hike, this run, this lift, yada yada yada. Exactly. But I mean, the conflict's not as fun when it's outside of your control.
Yeah.
But
that could be the most fun. Nah.
But anyway, back to you were going through the bachelor parties and you're back on trail. I'm guessing most of those were in PA, just since it's where we're from.
Yeah. I was like, I went through Grand Central Station like 3 times.
Once you get up out of PA, anything stick out about what happens from there?
It was, I was like, the trail's cool because it's almost like if you go northbound, so you go from Georgia to Maine, like each state kind of prepares you for a different part of the final challenge, which is New Hampshire and Southern Maine, which are really hard. So you have like,
what makes them harder than the rest of the trail?
It's like the elevation change of North Carolina, plus the rockiness of PA, plus the no water of Virginia, plus like there's no switchbacks. It's straight up, and like you have steep climbs like that in New York, but it's not that long. So there was days where I would hike 16 hours and get 18 miles, and like I'm used to 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And where you go straight up more than 1,000 feet per mile elevation change. And then you're coming down like equally reckless stuff where it's like, you're literally boulder hopping down a mountain and it's straight down. And if you fall, you're done. And it's just 3 weeks of that basically. And like it's so rewarding because when you get to the top of these mountains, it's views that like unlike anything, like even out, like I've been out west and hiked in the Rockies, and like these views will rival that for sure. And just crazy weather again. It was like the storms rolling out of nowhere, and it was super epic. But like going through that, and I went through, which was good because like I was slowing down a little bit, and I met this dude named Badger, and we hiked through like most of New Hampshire together, and he like really pushed me again to like, hike. You got to get up at 5 and hike all day, and like I really got into that routine at the end of the trail, and that was really good.
And he was through hiking as well.
Yeah, and he'd started like March, and I started in January. So it's everyone that was catching up to me then was all people that started in March and were going at like 100 day pace basically. And so like I would have liked to been going kind of that fast, but my feet just weren't gonna let me. And so like hiking with him was cool, but then I had to go to a wedding. So like I'm trying to think of the like, and it was like every day was just so hard, but it was so worth it, and it was like so like I was never bored because like in the middle of the trail you're walking all day and you're like, this sucks, I've seen this all before. But you're not bored at all in New Hampshire and Southern Maine. And then, like, it's funny because you meet all these other thru hikers and they're going through it too. And, like, you kind of see how they handle it. And, like, it beat up a lot of people, a lot of tough people that have walked all the way there. And, like, I would meet people and, like, within 5 minutes of talking to them, they'd be on some rant about how much the AT sucks. And, like, why would they do this? You should have gone down the PCT, blah, blah, blah. This is such a stupid trail, blah, blah, blah.
Have you met a good bit of people on the trail that did the PCT already?
A handful, yeah. because a lot of times it's like you do one, and it's like, well, I might as well do another one, and then you got to do all three. If you're gonna just do one,
PCT.
don't do the AT. Like, do the PCT or the CDT. I kind of want to do the CDT more than the PCT at this point. But
Really, I haven't heard much about any of the the vistas or the scenery of the Continental Divide.
I mean, I think you probably get a little better scenery on the PCT, but just like the ruggedness of the CDT, like you're out there and there's like 40-mile stretches without water, and there's parts where there's no official CDT route, so there's parts where you can choose which, like there's a trail that'll take you on like 7 river crossings, or you can go up and over the mountain, or like stuff like that where you're kind of picking your route. That intrigues me a lot. I mean, we'll see about a long hike. That's like, doing another through hike is like you gotta quit your job, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So if I could get a career in through hiking to where doing another through hike would be like an investment or a marketing thing, that'd be perfect.
Exactly.
That's kind of what I'm going for, some way or another.
I'm pulling for you, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, get up, main area.
Yeah.
Home stretch.
Yeah, and so like I'm pushing through, I'm feeling good. And then it got real tough for me because I got dumped.
Oh man.
So my girlfriend of 3 years, we broke up, and like I got like 2 weeks ago, and that sent me into like a whole nother like challenge. Like it was like one last challenge to end this, which was, in terms of like it sucked, but like in terms of like I started out it was really freaking hard. Mm-hmm. I might as well end this with something really freaking hard.
Right.
And so that's why I was pushing bigger miles in those times, and like really, really got into my head about like who I am, what I want to do, and like I don't, especially like now more than ever, like I can't fall back into those old ways, and like I got to be a new person now. This is like a total like release into the world of like a new fresh start. Because it's funny, like most people will through hike because they got dumped. I did the through hike and then I got dumped, but so like that was like in that that's like I did the 100-mile wilderness in 3 days, which is like pretty fast. I was doing like 30-mile days, and I don't know, that was definitely the final like big challenge, because my body was fine. Like I was cruising through there. I mean, I wasn't like eating normally. I could only eat Snickers bars, and my water filter,
what
like
a diet.
I would eat like only Snickers bars and peanut butter for the last 2 weeks.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was like, it happens to every through hiker.
And still losing so much weight.
Oh yeah, I was at the skinniest. Like I was under 160. Like haven't been there in a while, which makes it even crazier, because I hiked, like 2,000 miles, and you walk all day, and you can't possibly eat enough, and I was still 20 pounds more than I wrestled in college. That's
unreal.
Like how does that happen? I think I'm more leg muscle, but I don't know. Like that just shows you how like intense wrestling is, like how much lower you can get, which is like why I was never really worried about like how skinny I was getting, because I was like, I've been through way worse than this. Like I can drink as much water as I want. Like I can.
It's a luxury that
like
even I take for granted.
Drink a glass of water and not be like, that's 9 ounces.
Yep.
Amazing. I'll never be dehydrated again in my life.
Going to bed with cotton mouth because you're weighing in the next morning.
Oh man, I would have dreams. The one dream I had a lot was I would chase the Kool-Aid man in my dreams, and it would always end when I would tackle him and like try to drink him. And I'd always wake up right before I could drink him. Like, this happened like at least 10 times.
Like most people are having dreams where they're like falling. They wake up right before they die. The apex of your dream you wake up before is drinking Kool-Aid.
The one time I forget what, it was in high school. I think it was like early. It was my freshman or sophomore year. I slept walked to the bathroom, and I woke up drinking water. I was like, what? And I was a pound heavier than I went to bed. I was so mad at myself.
We had a kid miss weigh-ins at a tournament this year, a freshman, because we were in a hotel and he slept walked to the fridge, supposedly. But he's someone that on our team has never missed weight and didn't even cut a lot of weight. And he went to bed supposedly like either right on and weight, half pound over. Showed up the next morning, stepped on the scale, and he was 3 over. And he was like, I honestly don't know what happened. And someone else rooming with him was like, I saw you, like, I woke up because I heard you opening the fridge, and it's like, what is he, like, why is he drinking stuff right now? So, yeah, crazy stuff.
Oh my
Wrestlers
God.
are
That's
interesting,
wild.
interesting people.
That's wild. The one time, I don't know how, I must have done the same thing and drank water, because like I left practice at 103.3. I was making 103 the next day, and I came back. I didn't drink or eat anything, and I came back and I weighed 103.9. So I must have drank water or something. And my coach was like, "What did you do?" And I literally have no idea. I mean, I ran it off. I wasn't gonna miss weight. I never miss weight, so that's a point of pride for me.
As it should be. So,
but yeah.
Anyway, I know we went all over the place. We even touched on future aspirations. I do have a final question, but before that, you can tell people where they can find you.
Okay, I am at the Real J Youngs on Instagram. That's TheRealJYoungs. And if you want a custom backpack like the one pictured in said Instagram account, you can DM me on there or check out my blog. It's ysr.co. And there's contact information for that. I don't have anything like official running, but if you're interested in a custom piece of gear, I'll make it to the best of my ability, and you'll be my first customer.
Maybe I'll be your first customer.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Dude. So this one might be a lot to unpack. I don't know. And stuff we touched on throughout it. But if you could do anything differently for the exact same hike, what would you tell yourself, say, a month out before you left for the AT?
That's tough. I gotta think about that.
Unless you think it crafted you in such a way, and you had such a good mental frame shift because of it. Maybe you don't wish you did anything differently. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's little little stupid gear choices, but like that stuff doesn't really matter. Like, no, I don't think I wish I did anything differently. I mean, I probably would have been easier to be in a little better shape and like lose weight before that, but it was kind of in my head. Like I was really stressed about how much I weighed, and like I knew it wasn't healthy, and like I would try to run. Like I was like, I'm gonna sign up for a half marathon, and I'm gonna try to train for this, even if I can't run the half marathon. Like in training for this, I will lose weight and I'll get better. Blah blah blah. And like I got the worst shit months of my life trying to train for that. Like I couldn't even walk the next day after I would run like 3 miles. So like gave up on that, and it was like in this dark place where like I really wanted to change, and knowing that I had the trail coming up was what kept me like sane through that experience. So I don't know, all that to say I probably wouldn't change anything. Like I think it had to happen the way it did. And like I've grown a lot and learned a lot about myself, but I've also like reaffirmed a lot of stuff that I thought that I knew already, and like
what?
Just like like even out like Messiah and watching the elite wrestlers, and watching like on Instagram, watching these hikers and like knowing what it takes to really get after goals and like challenge yourself and have fun with it. Like all those lessons I've learned throughout my life, I feel like I finally was putting them all together, out on the trail. Because it's like, I feel like I did leave some on the table with my wrestling career. I did, because I stopped after my freshman year in high school, and I could have gotten better grades in engineering. I feel like I didn't really. I just got my degree. I didn't really go try that hard. I was just getting by. So I feel like this was something that I really applied myself fully to, and I think it was very rewarding, and it's something I want to continue in my life, of just being like really enthusiastic about your goals, not being ashamed of what you're dreaming of, and then just chasing it with everything you have and being obsessed. And that's stuff that was in my head and that I knew, and I've had these examples in my life, but I never really fully committed to that. So I feel like a lot of things came into this experience, and it's like hard to pick anything I really learned.
I got you. I think I think you gave the perfect answer. I got the chills listening to you. I feel that I hope at least one person listening to that answer gets inspired. Maybe not to hike the AT, but maybe to do something they've been putting off. Making some change, pursuing some higher vision.
Yeah, do it.
All right, dude. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's just a blast.
See everyone.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us on Facebook at Insights of All Trades. Find us on Instagram at Insights of All Trades. Twitter is IOAT Podcast. And send us your insights via email at insightsofalltrades@gmail.com. You can also DM us if you have some insights, and we'll include you at the beginning of the podcast. Thanks again. See you soon.